Hi friends, today I am going to discuss about Eureka-Server. So this is with respect to microservices. Okay, so Eureka-Server is a discovery server. What is discovery server? So why it is called as a discovery server? Okay, so suppose you have a n number of microservices. Let's say so you have MS1, MS2, MS3. So MS1 has to discover MS2, MS2 has to discover MS3. So like that all the microservice has to discover other microservices in a distributed environment. So in a distributed environment, if you deploy multiple services, so to communicate among themselves, there is a one way of communication happens, that is through Eureka-Server. So Eureka-Server helps in discovering the services. So MS1 will discover MS2 through Eureka-Server. So like this, all the services discover other services through Eureka-Server. So what is the need of discovering? Discovering means, like suppose you have deployed MS1, MS2, MS3 in a distributed environment. So MS1 has to check whether the MS2 is available or not, whether the service is up and running or not, to send any request. Okay, so for that one it will check Eureka-Server. So Eureka-Server will tell, so if MS1, MS2 is already running, it will tell to MS1 saying, so this MS2 is running and up, you can send a request. So to do the discovery of all the services, so we have to register all the microservices with Eureka-Server. Like this we call it as a discovery server. So it helps in discovering all the microservices available in the environment. Okay, so this Eureka-Server is a part of Netflix OSS suite. So it helps in registering all the microservices in a Eureka-Server, which is kind of a central hub for all microservices. So all the microservices will register in Eureka-Server. Okay, so it actually helps in different kind of functionality, like it helps in achieving dynamic and load balancing, fault tolerance, and ability to locate service and distributed architecture. So there are three cloud components. One is Joule, another is Ribbon, another is circuit breaker. So to achieve three different functionalities in a distributed architecture, we need these three component, we can say Spring Cloud components, to perform any kind of these helps in, like Joule helps in routing the request. If MS1 has to send a request to MS2, so Joule helps in routing the request. Suppose MS2 has multiple instances, which instance it has to pick up. So load balancing is used for Ribbon is used for load balancing. Suppose there are multiple instances of MS2. Okay, if MS1 is sending hundreds of requests, so only one instance of MS2 will not handle the request, right? So multiple instance of MS2 will be handled all those 1000 requests. So to balance the load among the multiple instance of MS2, so ribbon is used. Ribbon is between the microservices. Okay, Joule is like, suppose you have a some UI. Okay, from the UI, let me show you. So you have user interface. Okay, so the request is coming from user interface to MS1 or MS2 or MS3. Okay, so Joule is there in between this one. So UI, the request will come to Joule, and from Joule the request is routed to MS1 or MS2 or MS3 based on the configuration. So I will show you how to create a Joule configuration, how to create a ribbon, circuit breaker, all those things. Today we are going to discuss Eureka-Server and microservices, that is called as, each microservice called as a Eureka-Client. Okay, so let's go and do the implementation. So I have already created a project. Let me delete these things and create from the scratch. Okay, so let's delete this project. So let's create a Eureka-Server. Okay, so let's name it as a Eureka-Server. The name is already exist. We will change it to Spring Boot Eureka-Server. Okay, so let's select the dependency called Eureka. So Eureka-Server, we have to select dependency and then web. Okay, let's click finish. So we have to add a properties. So let me copy already existing properties. Okay, I'll explain you so how to create the application. So you can see we have to give application name. I have given it as a Eureka-Server. Okay, and the port, the default port it is 8761. So I have given 8761. You can change it also, no issue. These are the two properties we have to add. Eureka client register with Eureka. So this is already a Eureka-Server. It should not register with itself. So that is why I am giving it as a false. So Eureka-Client fetch registry. So this is a Eureka-Server. This is not Eureka-Client to fetch registry information. Like there are multiple services which register with Eureka and fetch the information of different microservices, right? So this is Eureka-Server. So we don't need to fetch any registry. So that is why we are keeping it as a false. Okay. So let's run this. Before that one, we have to add an annotation called enable Eureka-Server in the main application class. Okay. Let's run this server. So let's stop all the running server. So click on Java application, run. You can see application is started running in 8761 port. Okay. So let's try to check. So let me show you from beginning. You have to type localhost 8761. You can see Eureka dashboard is open. So currently application section, we don't see any application registered. Okay. So let's try to create a Eureka client. So Eureka client is a microservice. Any microservice, we call it as a Eureka client. Okay. Let's add a dependency called Eureka discovery client. Okay. We have to add a web, Spring Web. So let's create a project. Let me copy, the dependence properties, okay, which is already there. So let me explain you what are the properties I am adding. So you can see Spring application name. So I am giving the name of the application as Eureka-Client. So it can be any microservice name you have. Suppose you have created a user service or product service. So you can give it as a user service or product service, like that. Okay. Server port I am giving a 8085. Okay. These are the three important properties to register with Eureka. So first one is Eureka client service URL default zone. So this is the URL where Eureka server is running. So to register this microservice with Eureka. Okay. So it is running in localhost 8671/Eureka is the path we have to give. Okay. Eureka client register with Eureka. So to make this service register with Eureka, you have to give this path of this property. Eureka client fetch registry equal to true. What this property will do means, it will fetch the information of registry of any microservice running. Suppose if you want to suppose microservice 1 want to communicate with microservice 2, so it will check the registry and whether service is application or application is running in the environment or not. So if it is already registered, so then you can see the application is running then it will come to know application is running, so it can call the other services. Okay, let's run this application. So here we don't need to add any annotation. So it is, you can see registered instance Eureka client with the port 8085 with the Eureka server. Okay, so let's test whether it is registered or not. So you can see Eureka client application name and status is up, so it is registered with Eureka. So Raju is the host, means my laptop in which it is running, right? So Eureka client, the service name, port, it is running. If you click on this one, so it will give the actuator information. Okay, so this is how we can create a Eureka server and Eureka client. This is how we can register Eureka all the microservices with Eureka server. So you can try creating another microservice, something like user service or product service, and you can add the properties in the application property file. These are the main important properties which is enough to register that microservice with Eureka server. Okay, so thank you so much. Please subscribe my channel. Thank you.